Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chess Olympiad. This is the penultimate round, round number 10 out of 11. And also, this is ASMR hour at the GothamChess YouTube channel. This video will be uploaded around 9 p.m. local time. Also, I am not in my traditional environment. I'm currently in upstate New York. Went on a little weekend trip, and I am just adding one to the history books for the Gotham is kidnapped. And isn't it so great that his kidnappers allow him to record videos? It really is. Because let me tell you something right now. Have any of you watched the Casino Royale, the new one with Daniel Craig, James Bond? You know the scene where he removes the bottom of a chair and then whips Daniel Craig in the... It's kind of what it feels like to sit on this chair. So, not having a great time. For that reason, this recap will have only the most important games of the 10th round. And before we get into the games today, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Factor. Folks, have you ever found yourself sitting around at home wondering, why is my chess elo so low? Well, you're not the only one. And you're probably not the only one who feels hungry. But cooking can be a long, daunting process, not to mention cleaning up. And if you want to use a delivery app, it might be overpriced. It might be unreliable. Well, that's where Factor steps in. You see, Factor takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success. Skip the grocery stores and prep work and get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered straight to your door. Factor has over 35 meals every single week to choose from, and it doesn't matter if you're keto, if you're vegan, and everything in between. And they even have gourmet meals with premium ingredients, like truffle butter, shrimp, and filet mignon. Oh, and by the way, full meals aside, now Factor also has things like snacks and breakfasts, smoothies, and juices. And whichever way you use Factor, you can change your order every week, and their plans have anywhere from 4 to 18 meals delivered every single week. The best part is, Factor takes just 2 minutes to heat up, and then you're ready to eat. Folks, you can now get 50% off your first Factor box, and then 20% off your next month of orders using my link. You can click it in the description, or you can scan the QR code with your phone. Now, let's get back to the video. You may not know this, but Magnus Carlsen has played Ivan Shitko from Moldova already twice in his career, and he's actually been unable to defeat him 2 times. I have a video on this channel, probably some clickbait, garbage nonsense, like the rest of the channel, which is... which would be Carlsen has an unbeatable rival or something along these lines. But actually, yes, they have played twice, and Magnus has not been able to win. So first we're going to check in with Magnus, then we're going to go look at a very pivotal matchup, Netherlands versus Slovenia, and then it is India versus America in both the race for strong economy and also in the Olympiad. Huge matchup. So, kicking things off here with Magnus and Ivan, we have d4, d5, Magnus playing knight f3, knight f6, and e3. Very quiet system. Bishop f5 is the move chosen by black, and now we quickly transpose to c4, a Slav defense, e6, and knight to h4. Now, I woke up around this moment. I woke up around this moment, and I was like, a5. I mean, I get it. I guess after bishop d2, black is trying to do some stuff over here, and Ivan played this move in 15 seconds, which tells me that, this is obviously some sort of preparation. And then after c takes d5, he doesn't play e d5 or c d5. Instead, he plays knight takes d5, and Magnus just plays g3. So from the early opening, Ivan had a 26-minute time advantage, and I was like, yo, is this dude like in Magnus's head? Like, obviously the opening is nothing special, but this was my, idiotic fan assessment of the position. Like fans like to psychoanalyze like the athletes. They're like, oh, he's nervous. You can tell by his body language. Meanwhile, like, guy hasn't gotten off the couch in like 3 weeks. On a serious note, if you're struggling to get off the couch, whether physically or mentally, do seek help. Mental health in particular, very, very important. Do try to take care of it as much as possible. And I am, my heart and soul is with you. Now, wholesomeness aside, back to roasting. The knight comes out to d7, and Magnus plays e4, knight c3, and bc3. Now, this center looks really nice for white. White has moved the b pawn to a c pawn. He has a very nice position. Black now playing b5, and again, Ivon not really spending any time. He's just 125 on the clock. Magnus here plays a3, kind of a waiting move, and actually, after just a4 and bishop e7, even here, bishop e7, black's position is totally healthy. a3 apparently the wrong choice. Instead, white should play bishop e2, king f2, which is definitely a fascinating approach. The computer also wants white to take on g6, put the king on g2, and then play h4. This is how the engine gives way. Yeah, just casually walk your king over twice. Okay. Obviously, Magnus doesn't do that because he's a human. Oh, no, just kidding. He literally does exactly that because he's literally not human. So he plays the right setup anyway, but you had to do that without playing a3. I don't really know why. I can't really explain to you because, again, I don't think that black ever really wants to play b4, but maybe Magnus was worried that black could play b4. I don't know. Maybe he didn't like, but he chooses the same exact setup that the engine wants, but he includes the move a3, which the engine didn't want. So, yeah, fascinating setup of pieces. Now we play rook f1, and now Magnus comes up with rook f2, which is a very deep idea. Some of you may be wondering why rook f2. If he's going to play f4, why doesn't he just play it right now? It actually is possible, but I think he wanted to protect the second rank in many lines. Also, he maybe wants to, double up. So rook f2 is just kind of a prophylactic move, which is a very big word that you can flex on your friends. Rook f2 here is chosen by Magnus, and the knight goes back to d7. And, coach has always told me you should avoid moving pieces kind of out of the center of the board. That wasn't really the center of the board, but the knight goes back, and immediately Magnus just bounces. Yeah, and suddenly those two games that these two boys had in the past are a distant memory. Magnus roars forward, bishop takes f4, Ivon tries to fight back, bishop d6, Magnus shoves the bishop out of the game, bishop goes back to e7. This knight is not re-entering anytime soon, bishop g4, and anytime you have an overwhelming space advantage plus a big piece majority like this staring at your opponent's position, you now should turn your brain on and sacrifice material. Not lose it and call it a sacrifice, but yes, sacrifice. a4, queen a2, knight f8, rook f1, and this is just a beautiful coordination now. h4, bringing yet more material to the party, playing h5, keeping that knight out of the game. Bishop goes back to e3, protecting the center. Ivon tries to fight back, but it's simply not good enough. The black knight on f8 completely stuck, the rook on h7 completely stuck, the bishop on e7 completely stuck. And yes, you can trade the queens, and you would think that that somehow, removes the advantage, but it does not. Rook c8, g4, and this is vintage Magnus. Suddenly, black has absolutely nothing. Just absolutely zero moves. And the way you're going to win is you're going to play bishop e4, rook f2. The rook cannot stay guarding the pawn because if it goes to g7, you play h6. And that is exactly how Magnus wins. Bishop e4, rook f2. Beautiful configuration. By the way, king g3, just nice little move for good measure, just improving the position. Black has to make a move now, and now you sacrifice. Bishop takes, rook f8. You get in, you trade the rooks. h6, beautiful move, by the way. Can't be captured. Because if you take it, rook h1, if king g7, you play g5, bishop takes g5, you have rook h7 check, and because you can't take g5. And now you cannot take because rook f8 made absolutely brutal game. Magnus saying, you got 2 draws against me, but that's the last time. I will not defeat you. And unfortunately for Ivon, he is... And by the way, Ivon beat me also. So that's actually even maybe more impressive than drawing Magnus twice. I mean, I would argue. Anyway, Magnus getting a much-deserved victory. We do cover his games. Yesterday, I decided to feature... this is actually kind of the hard part about, having a chess YouTube channel. Yesterday, I featured India. I featured, the chess cell phone device drama, but I primarily focused on the Indian team. Nobody, 80 to 90,000 less people watch the recap, whereas this one is probably titled something after Magnus, and here you are watching it because it's something about Magnus, and now I will tell you about India anyway, and you will probably still watch, hopefully. So yeah, just kind of a, upsetting reality about the world. Now, we have India-US, which is great, but first I'm going to serve you up this very important matchup. The winner of this matchup, this is the board 4 matchup between Netherlands and Slovenia. The winner here actually leapfrogs into second place, which is kind of insane. So we have e4, c5. You know we're going to have a winner. Bishop b5, d6. Benjamin Bach, very strong grandmaster. Matej Sebenik, I don't know about very strong, but definitely quite strong. I mean, 25-15 might be a little underrated, but Bach has been like 26-40, and I think he's been a Dutch champion, so he is very good, very experienced. Also, frequently playing Hikaru to many, many close matches in Blitz. By the way, some of you may be wondering, can the bishop take, queen takes, and knight takes d4? You are absolutely right. That is why after bishop takes, I will play pawn takes. So e5, d5. The knight comes into d4. Very risky approach by black, who completely, runs headfirst into white structure. Knight c3, bishop e7, and now queen b3. Queen b3 is actually wrong. It's better for white to play knight a4 and try to play knight b6 and play, as my coach says, for domination, trying to take control of that side of the board. Instead, Bach goes here, and I think the next move must have surprised them because Sebenik just gives up the b7 pawn. And I think at this point you sit with white and you go, oh, that pawn was not worth defending? Okay. So he spends 10 minutes taking it. And now with your queen, picking flowers on the other side of the board, Sebenik is like, really? Knight h5. f5 is on the way. Alarm bells are probably sounding. King h1 played after 14 more minutes of thought. Here comes f5. And everything is now slipping. The bishop tries to play defense. Rook b8 kicks out the queen, and now f4. f4 is a nasty move. The point is you create this brick wall. You force the pieces backwards a little bit. Bishop d7, queen d7, and now the bishop goes back to c1. But in comes the queen, and the engine here gives equal only if white saves the day by playing queen f1, and then, queen f3, queen g2 might be a draw. Instead of that, black goes here, which is a mistake, because now you can play queen e2 and rook g1. Instead of that, Bach plays a very normal move, which is queen g2. But after rook f6, he's under severe pressure, so he plays rook g1, rook g6, queen f1. This is the way he's trying to regroup, and he is doing quite well. And now he had to come up with a very ridiculous idea. I'm not sure this idea is findable for a human, to be honest, but he has to play knight b1. The point is you are defending this pawn, because if it gets taken, the knight attacks the queen, and if the queen goes back to where it was, now white just plays a4 and asks black, where is the attack? And black is like, right here. And you're like, where's the attack? And black is like, right here. And you're like, where's the attack, idiot? So there is no attack. It's not so simple. So knight b1, knight d2 here. Instead, Bach goes here, and this is the beginning of the problems, because queen d3 is wrong. And instead of knight e2, again, maybe he can continue, but knight e2 is even worse. Knight g4, you cannot take it with the pawn because you lose your queen. You cannot take it with the rook because you get checkmated. So after knight takes f4, it looks like Bach is getting back into the game, but the mistakes keep getting worse. He has 45 seconds on the clock, and queen h5 was not the best, but rook g6 is a losing mistake. Black's attack lands before white is able to get anything going. King g1, queen f3, he swarms, and the king is just exposed completely. Queen h4, black is now up a piece. Now black is up a rook. Game goes on for a couple more moves, and Bach resigns. And Slovenia, the team where Fedoseev just took down Magnus Carlsen, is in silver medal contention. I mean, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, they did have two people transfer from Russia earlier, maybe this year or last year. So they have Anton Demchenko, 2700 level player, Fedoseev, 2750 level player. They have a really, really, really good team. But like, they have a 25-15 on board 4. And in this tournament, like, you look at the Indian team, their average rating is 2760. Their board 4 is 2720. So you got to have monsters, and Sebenik is having a good tournament. I mean, he's beating a lot of very good players. He only has one loss. So he's performed very, very well. Now, let us go to the main event. All right, let us go to the main event of the evening. We have India taking on the United States. Okay. Fabiano Caruana is 2798 compared to their board 1, who is 2764. Wesley So and Prague is a very close matchup on board 2. You have Erigaisi, who actually outrates Lener Dominguez, and on board 4, of Levon Aronian versus Vidit Gujarati, who drew their game, and the other 3 were decisive. And we are going to kick things off with the game Gukesh versus Fabiano Caruana. We got d4 on the way. Knight f6, Gukesh goes for a Catalan. d5, bishop g2, Bobby plays the immediate knight c6. Let me tell you something right now. I've never seen that damn move in my life. If you look at the database here, there is bishop e7, there is dc4, there is bishop b4, there is c6, there is c5, there is knight bd7, and then and only then a move making up like 1% or fewer games is knight c6. I don't know what this is, which is probably why Gukesh spent a little bit of time on his next move, but he just played normally. Rook b8, and after cd5, Fabi throws in bishop b4 check, knight goes to c3, he plays pawn takes d5, but Gukesh just played this very normally. He gave up his dark squared bishop, like this, and he went here. Now the pawn in the center is hanging, so we get this position in the middle game, knight to d2, and Gukesh is going to rely on the c-pawn, or he's going to rely on the e-pawn, or he's going to rely on the e-pawn like this, where he gets his rook in the game, rook b1, etc. Knight e7, Fabiano still trying to figure things out, but queen a4, and Gukesh was putting some pressure. He ultimately opts for e4, which is a completely normal move. Queen a5 was another move to keep bothering the position, but he plays e4, and now c5. Very complicated, yet Gukesh is out-calculating the guy that out-calculates everybody. Queen a3 is a very, very sharp resource. The point of queen a3 is that if you take on d4, I'm going to play e5. Your queen cannot protect your knight. If queen g5, I have knight f3 or I have f4. Both moves are good, and you simply are going to lose the knight on e7. Yes, you get this, but it's not scary. It looks scary for the untrained eye, but it's not scary. So Fabi plays b6, and Gukesh is just outplaying Fabi. Fabi tries to make it complicated. He plays d4. Gukesh plays c4, not the best move, but a perfectly reasonable one. Rook d1, and he let him off the hook a little bit here, but Fabi takes back with the pawn. He should have taken back with the queen, and now Gukesh plays f4. Suddenly, he's got a very strong pawn majority marching forward here. Plays f5. The bishop is going to have to go backwards. Rook b1, rook b1. Instead of that, Fabi plays queen e2. So both guys have about 13, 14 minutes for 17 moves, or else they're going to lose on time. F takes e6, gets the bishop. Queen takes d2, gets the knight. E takes f7 as a check. King takes f7 as a check. Is recapturing the pawn. And queen c5. Crazy position. So Gukesh is still a pawn up. Fabi's king is exposed, but Gukesh only has 7 minutes remaining. What is the major criticism of Gukesh's game? He's not an intuitive player, meaning he relies on really, really deep calculation. He's obviously very good at finding deep ideas, but he's not good at rapid and blitz. He's much worse than guys like, well, much worse is a stretch at their level, but let's say he's worse than guys like Prague, Nihal Sarin. That is what they say, even Eric Geisy. So how is he going to deal with the counterplay of Caruana, who suddenly has a pawn on d2? Very scary stuff. Gukesh has 3 minutes to make 10 moves, or he may lose the game. Plays the best move, bishop g4. The queen goes to d3, attacking the rook. Now here comes the king, right? He gives up the pawn on c4. Now he plays a4. The point is that if you take on a4, I have rook f7 incoming with rook g7, so Fabi goes queen c6. Fabi also a bit of a nervy player sometimes under low time. Now around here, Fabiano was looking at the other boards. And he probably felt like if he doesn't try to play this for a win, the team could be in trouble. That's what the story was. And so around here, maybe he could have played it a bit more safe, but he tried to keep the tension, which is the struggle of the Olympiad, by the way. You're looking around and you're going, oh my God, what do I do here? But queen d4, and now Fabi's got 4 minutes. He should bring his knight into the game, but instead he plays queen g6. And now the winning move is rook to f4, and Gukesh plays it with 21 seconds on the clock. He gains 30 seconds for his move. The queen goes to g5, and now it's bad to worse. Here comes h4. The queen goes back. Gukesh picks up the pawn. He is now up a pawn. But the real benefit is that the knight cannot move. If the knight was on e5, life would be good, but the knight cannot move. So rook b8, queen d7. Fabi tries to play h5. The bishop goes into e6. Rook attacks the bishop. And the bishop goes to f7. Gukesh has made the time control with 4 seconds remaining. Queen d6, but it's not good enough. Queen d6, rook d6, bishop h5. Gukesh is up 2 pawns against Fabiano Caruana. And now, as they say, it is just a matter of technique. Fabi doesn't even challenge the technique of the young man, and he resigns. And for the second Olympiad in a row, Gukesh has taken down Fabiano Caruana. This man is an elite top level player. He is 2790. In the era of elo deflation, when everyone's elo is falling to the rising 26 and 2700s, this man is 2790. He is now like 6 rating points away from overtaking Fabiano Caruana in live rankings. Gukesh is not just a prodigy anymore. This man is an elite top-level competitor. And he is now 70 plus points higher rated than the guy who he is playing for the title. This has never been seen before. But this is not where the match ended. Because on board 2, we had an insane game. We had Wesley So versus Progdananda, the young man. Prague, amazing at classical, rapid, and blitz. Magnus's protege in many ways. Magnus always lauding him and complimenting him. And Wesley, who has had a pretty decent tournament, but decent as in, he's won some good games, but he also lost to Ivanchuk and he's made some draws. So, yeah, all signs were pointing to the fact that Prague was going to, slowly hold and do his job on the second board. But Wesley, Wesley came to play. He was putting some pressure early. Look at Prague creating counterplay, but Wesley very sharp with b5. Looking nice on the other side of the board. We have knight back to b8, king h2, knight d7, g3, knight g6, ba6, and Wesley just takes a breather here. Now we have d5. Okay? Knight cd2, f6, q1. We got some ideas coming over here maybe. Rook goes to d8. Trying to counter, right? There's a queen on this side of the board. Slowly improving. He's also slowly improving. Now both boys got 30 minutes on the clock for the remaining 20 moves. Wesley starts attacking over here. Very tense moment. Like, what are you going to do in the center? Going to do anything in the center? Wesley decides right now to kill the tension. He plays c takes d5. It's actually not the right moment, but the game still has plenty of life. The knight is trying to come in. The bishop is trying to go to g5. Okay. h6. Knight h2. Knight g4 potential, bishop e3 potential. Prague's got a fantastic position. And I feel like Prague at this point might have felt like, I think it's time for me to take over this game. Because again, Prague can play queen b5. He can sort of just keep the tension, keep playing tennis, just hitting the ball back. Not trying to, do too much, just hitting the ball back. Instead, he goes for a kill shot. And Rook c2 here is really good for white, but Rook d2 is good too. White has an advantage. Rook d3, and I think somewhere here, Prague was like just a little bit too gun happy. Like he just wanted to, well, no, that's Americans, but no, Prague just wanted to win really badly, and I think something kind of went wrong because white has attacks of his own. Queen a2 check, king h7, a little bit underestimating white's position. I feel like Wesley, by the way, not punishing Prague in the best way, but suddenly Wesley got in, and then he really got in. Rook f1, by the way, not the best move. Knight h4 here. I have no idea why Wesley didn't play knight h4. You defend against queen f2. The queen has to go all the way back, but instead of that, Wesley ends up catching Prague here. Rook e7, again, Prague not sharp down the stretch, but okay, 2 minutes is forgivable, but kaboom. And Wesley gets in. Wesley's winning. Queen h5, sharp, knights get in. Knight h6 is a beautiful dagger. If this you take, you play knight f5 check. And Wesley So delivers a blow to Prague for show. And now the USA team's chance is not 0. It's 1-1. And it all comes down to the final game on board number 3. Arjin Erigaisi, Lener, Dominguez. Arjin Erigaisi has had an Olympiad where he has feasted on the heart and soul of 2,600 players. But Lener's 2,750. So let's see what happens. We have d4, d5. c4, c6. Knight f3, knight f6. We have the Slav defense with a6 and c5. And the line that is chosen here is b6, where you try to fight back, but in fighting back, you have a little bit of a weakness here on c5. So queen c7, g3, e6, developing the bishop, Very interesting idea here to try to fight for the dark squares. A5, rook c1. And from the opening, it was clear that, Erigaisi did exactly what is expected of him. He got a nice little pleasant position, good control over the dark squares, and he castles. Rook d8, rook d1. And the major question is, at what point will black play this move e5? It's very clear that he's preparing it, but at what point is he going to play it? Well, luckily, Lener does not particularly, mind rushing, and he just plays e5 right now. Obviously, he needed to calculate what's going on in the position. So d takes e5, knight takes e5, and now Erigaisi plays knight d4. And it's clear Erigaisi has some, very nasty ideas. He's just pressuring here. I mean, the advantage is quite palpable. He's also giving up the bishop on d3 completely. He's trading this bishop because at the end, black is left with whatever the heck that guy is doing, stuck on the diagonal, which is why you play bishop a6. But now rook b3. c6 is hanging. Rook b6 is a problem. Knight c5 is there. Queen c5 as well, also there. a5 is a bit weak. And knight d7 is the best move. Well spotted. Taking on c6, not so simple here because, for example, queen c6 looks like a free pawn, but there is rook c8. And if you trade the queen, if you take the queen, rook c1, king g2, bishop f1, king f3, knight e5, king f4, there is g5, and actually white is losing in an insane turn of events. King f5, bishop h3, or bishop g4, king f6, knight d7. You have to lose your queen. Yes, they actually saw that because they're good players, unlike you and me. Look, I'm actually including both of us in that. But instead of that, knight b6 was played, and c5 is necessary here, by the way. If you had taken on b6, I would have played rook b6. I would have feasted on your pawns. So that's a bad situation. Instead, giving up the exchange is good. Knight b5, queen b6, and now Lener has to go c4, knight e5, and try to fight for the light squares. He needs to play c4 attacking the rook, which cannot really be taken because there's a pin, but knight c5 is, a threat. So let's say rook c3, knight e5, knight d4, and something like queen d7. And this position is not losing because the knight always has access to these squares. But Lener plays the wrong plan. And Erigaisi just makes him pay and sends him to an endgame where the knight no longer has an easy outpost. You need the knight to sit on an outpost square. He trades off one of the rooks, and now it's time to convert like a 2800 level player. And low time aside, tension aside, he's going to get it done, runs his king, maintains his nerves better than his opponent, and this is a winning endgame. It comes down to the final two pawns. There they go. And this is just winning. This is winning because the b pawn is stronger than the f pawn. Rook a3, rook h3, beautiful technique. This position, b pawn is just going. And black cannot configure any sort of defense. Arjin Erigaisi defeats Lener Dominguez. Arjin Erigaisi now 2793. What even are these ratings? India has a 2793 and a 2790. That has literally never happened before. Like, maybe Team Russia back in the day when they had a 2800 and a 2700. I mean, like, born in the country, raised in the country, two 2790 rated players. Maybe USA, maybe they had, right now they have Fabi and Hikaru, but they're not playing. Unbelievable. And, India is just on fire. I mean, just spectacular. What can I say? The only way India doesn't win a gold medal, which they've basically clinched, is if India loses 4-0 to Slovenia, and if China loses 4-0 to whoever they're playing. So that's not going to happen. Congratulations to India for winning the gold medal without even playing the final game. In 40 games, they lost one, and it was the Prague game that I just showed you. They deserve it. What can you even possibly say? On the women's side, it's a very close race. I will cover all of that tomorrow. You have Kazakhstan, USA, Poland. Kazakhstan, USA, Poland, and India. All very close. So I'm going to show you all that tomorrow. Thank you for watching. It's late here, so I'm going to go to the hot tub. We got a hot tub here, so I'm not going to take you there with me. Enjoy and get out of here.